Hello.
Hi, Barbara.
Hi, how are you, Slash?
I'm good. How are you?
Great to have the pleasure actually to talk to you again, and welcome to Linear Rock.
Yeah, hi. How you doing?
Fine, thanks so much. It's been a while, and
Nothing.
finally we will have a new album from the Conspirators on February 11th. Is that correct?
Right. And it's actually Gibson Records.
Fantastic. But what I was wondering, was the composition process more intimate and lonely maybe this time due to the pandemic? Our different kind, of band effort is for.
Yeah, well, a little bit, a lot of the material was written on the road together. But when I started thinking about getting into this next record, it was during the pandemic. And so I had to actually make demos of all the songs by myself with a drum machine and all that. And then I would send them to Myles. So it was a little bit long distance. But it wasn't too bad. And I was in a real creative place at the time anyway. So I was doing a lot of writing and recording at my studio. And so I would farm out the demos over to Myles. And then eventually when the restrictions lightened up a little bit, the guys came out and we did about 2 weeks of pre-production together, which was really nice. And then we drove out to Nashville to record the record together.
Do the other guys ever maybe perceive you and Miles as leaders some way during the writing process?
I don't, Miles and I have always sort of written the same way ever since the very beginning, when we did Starlight way back in 2010.
Yeah.
So I think it's just sort of the way that the way that we do things is I come up with some music, and then Miles would come up with some lyrics and melodies. But whatever we come up with, the rest of the guys just make up whatever they want to sort of the song idea, and it becomes very sort of band-like in that sense. So I don't think it's really any kind of a dictatorship, you know.
How do you usually work on the guitar solos? Is that the last thing done? I mean, as you have to be driven by pretty much the whole finished song, or
Yeah.
there's no specific rule for you?
No, I just, we basically write the song and you sort of figure out the solo section and what key it's going to be in, and then I just make it up. I mean, I just improvise, and that's always the best way to get a good solo, especially like on this record. There's really a lot of improvisation, because we didn't spend too much time working on the material, so it's very spontaneous. But I like to keep it as sort of off the cuff as possible.
So you don't feel any pressure. I mean, you're considered, one of the best guitarists in rock history. So is there any pressure every time you have to come up with a new riff or a new solo?
Well, I just don't consider, like, that's very flattering, but I don't see myself as that. So I think the only pressure I have is my own pressure on myself. I guess that would be something I'm probably more aware of than what other people are necessarily thinking. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And about the guitar, how did your relationship with the guitar change over the years? Is there any before and after fame approach to it for you? Maybe some way influenced by, the evolution of your career and by the job factor?
Well, that's a really interesting question. I'm not even sure what the answer is. I mean, I think my relationship with the guitar has maintained, it stayed pretty much the same since I started. It's basically me chasing the guitar to get better at it, and it's pretty much never changed. It's still going on. But I think I love the guitar even more now than when I first started. I definitely see a natural sort of progression where the guitar just becomes more and more fascinating to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's always been a journey.
And you've always said also that you are a very shy guy and a sensible soul. I guess that is not an easy thing to deal with for a performer. as you are, which, basically play arenas and stadiums. How did you get around that? I mean, turning it into a pro and not a con on your glorious 35 years path. Maybe
Um,
it can be, like a piece of advice for any other shy soul around.
there's an energy that happens when I actually play in front of an audience that gets me out of my shell, and makes it possible. But I also realize that I get really uncomfortable and distracted if I look into the audience. And so that's something. I mean, I can totally lose my place if I just look at the audience for more than a second. But I think that's where the top hat came in, because I used to hide behind that. So there's ways of dealing with it, but there is an energy that happens when I'm playing that I don't have when I'm not playing. So I'm a little bit more sort of flamboyant, outgoing when I'm on stage. When I'm off stage, I don't like to draw attention to myself at all.
All right. This is, of course, the fourth Conspirators album. Is there any other reason behind the choice of 4 as a title?
Well, I mean, honestly, the biggest reason that we didn't have a title was because I just didn't want to try and come up with something witty or clever or any kind of a statement, that because there was nothing to call the record that really represented what a nightmare 2020 was. And I didn't want to be reminded of it. I didn't want to think I could encapsulate it with a sentence or a phrase. So I said, just to avoid that altogether and keep it simple. And so it is our fourth record, which is a seminal, point in our career. So I figured we should just call it that.
And in the Middle Ages, 4 stood for the fixer, the closer. So it can bring maybe some good vibes around them.
Yeah, so there's that too.
Did you collaborate to any of the lyrics on 4?
No, I didn't get into the lyrics at all. I try to avoid getting into lyrics if I can help it. Myles is perfectly capable, and unless he asks my opinion or my advice for something, I try to sort of just stay away from the lyric part.
And do you remember which was the first and the last song that you worked on, maybe for any particular reason?
Well, shit, it's hard to say. I mean, I think when we actually went into pre-production, one of the first songs that we did was "Call Off the Dogs."
Okay.
If I remember correctly, just because it was one of the last songs that I wrote, and it was a good fast jam to sort of get the lead out, so to speak, when we all got together for the first time after a year of sitting around in our houses.
And which of your classics songs would you consider like quintessential / the one that delivers your essence the most?
Oh, I mean, shit, I don't know. I mean, I guess with Guns N' Roses, it would probably be Paradise City, something like that. And then I think when I don't know, it's so hard to really say, because I'm so much attached to all the music that I record and every band that I've been in, that it's hard to sort of specifically pinpoint which is more me than something else.
And is like songs like Paradise City something that still gives you a good feeling when you play them? And, confronting to those kind of songs and writing new ones can create any pressure?
No, I think I'm making it sound more complex than it is. I don't feel like I have to sort of follow up with any particular song. And I only said Paradise City because I couldn't think of anything else to say.
All right. But that's a good one anyways. Okay, so your autobiography book is very loved, very appreciated by many, because it's very sincere and honest.
Mm.
Is there any other rock and roll book that you have enjoyed in particular that maybe inspired you for your own one?
You know, to tell you the truth, I don't read rock and roll books. I sort of um you know, like I've read some, let's see, like you know, I read a sort of book about Nashville artists, and I've read books about rock and roll, but I've never read anybody else's. I read the Jim Morrison one. I read the most recent Joe Perry one, but for the most part, I stay away from autobiographies. A lot of it is because I know people. You know, I know the people that wrote them, and it feels like spying on them. You know, it's like following people on their Instagram. If you know them, it's like, you know, it feels like spying. But anyway, I also used to think that rock and roll books were 75% bullshit too.
Okay.
And I didn't want to, you know, sort of get into, because autobiographies are largely written by other people, or biographies are totally written by other people. So it's their own fantasy that they're sort of building up in these books. So I wanted that sort of inspired me to write my book myself and not rely too much on the ghostwriter.
Yeah.
You know, to be as honest as possible. So it was inspired. They inspired me in that way.
And what about biopic? Is it something that you would consider? Because it's very hip now, you know?
Yeah, no, it's come up many times, and I'm just not into it. I can't see how that could work at all.
Okay, I know that you collect Funko Pops. And of course, the Slash Funko Pop is one of the best sellers. You had one of those also on your amp for a while. Do you still own one? And
Uh, well, you know, I was so flattered when they made the first one. Yeah, you know, I was like, okay, cool. But no, I don't really have any around. I mean, you know, not of myself anyway. I have a bunch of other monsters and other, you know, like Angus Young one and Jimi Hendrix one and all those different things. But the ones of ourselves, I had initially, but then they became very popular, so I put it away.
Okay, so is this kind of recognition, you know, of icon status something that embarrass you?
Well, you know what? When it comes to stuff that is cartoon, you know, animation kind of thing, and sort of more tongue in cheek, then I sort of like it because it's right up my alley. I love animation. I love, you know, cartoons, and I love you know, sort of like that kind of art. So it's sort of cool and can't be taken that seriously. Whereas if somebody does like a lifelike sculpture of you or something, that's way more embarrassing because it's too it's taking you too seriously. But when it comes to cartoons, it's actually sort of cool.
Okay, so last question. If you could turn back time, what would you suggest to your 18 years old self, you know,
Yeah.
with the knowledge of today?
You know what? I just don't believe in that kind of thinking. There is no turning back time. And it's just pointless to think what I would do. I mean, because life happens, and however it's ended up to this point is how it went, and you just sort of go with it. So I can't really, even if there was something I'd like to go back and change, what's the point?
Okay, let's put it like this. Which is the best school of rock? It's learning skills during the hard early days, or, you know, taming fame and the big success makes you real and gives you the kick?
Well, I mean, I don't think there's at any point where you stop learning, because from, you know, once you get past one point, you have to get past the next one, and it just seems to continue on. But it's all been, you know, a really great adventure. You know, I can't complain about any of it, the ups and the downs. It's all been pretty interesting and a lot of fun, you know, hardships aside.
Okay. Thanks very much, Slash, for your time. Always a pleasure to talk to you. And of course, you're always welcome to Italy and to Linea Rock.
Oh, Barbara, you're great. And those are great questions. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Slash. From somebody like you know, it's very precious. Thanks so much.
Hopefully I get to see you in Italy at some point.
Yes, I hope so. See you soon.
All right, take care. Bye.
Grazie, ciao, ciao.